Today. Yeah? Are you enjoying the conference? Okay. Good, good. One of the things I do want to ask of you about that is to give us your feedback. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, that Tania really was challenging us to actually use the data that we collect. And I want to let you know that we actually do. We take all of the evaluations for every session and every keynote address and all the different elements of the conference, including venue and so forth. And we look at that and we incorporate new ideas. For example, this year, you may recall the second breakout session, we had roundtable discussions so people could talk about some of the meatier issues pertaining to those different topics. So we're very anxious to get that feedback from all of you. So please do fill out the evaluations when you have them. And at the end, we'll probably send out an electronic invitation to get additional feedback. But I do want to make sure that you all know that we actually do use that data. Good morning and welcome to the third day of the conference. We're very happy to be here in San Diego. I think the Northwest weather found us. We tried not to bring it, but it looks like this morning we may have done it. So I apologize, and hopefully it will burn off by this afternoon. This morning I'm going to introduce, we have our next keynote speaker. And we talked a lot over the last few days and even over the last several years about the value of telling your stories. And our next keynote speaker is really a master at telling stories. So question, how many of you have heard of Animal Planet? Oh, a few of you, I see. And how many of you have watched Animal Planet with your children? Your kids like it? Okay, is it educational, interesting? Well, a lot of the success of that program was because of Maureen Smith, our next keynote speaker. She led the Discovery Communications Animal Planet and really brought that into the homes of all of us. And she made it the #1 ranked show among moms for the most trusted media company for their families. So I think that's pretty phenomenal in this day and age. I have 3 teenagers, and I know it's very hard to control all the things that they watch, but I think that's pretty remarkable. Now Maureen is sharing her wealth of expertise in branding and marketing and her media experiences with the Jane Goodall Institute. Maureen is the president and CEO of the Jane Goodall Institute, and I'm sure you're familiar with all of the work that they've been doing with the chimpanzees. They've also branched extensively into the environmental and humanitarian programs. Specifically, there's a program they have called Roots and Shoots. And I met with Maureen Smith and her staff several months ago in DC, and we talked about some very similar approaches that we're having with all of our work that we're doing in the service learning and civic engagement field with the Roots and Shoots work that's very bedded in service learning. So we just kind of had this kind of kindred spirit in talking about our work together. So we're so pleased that she was able to join us here today to talk more about her work and the great work with the Roots and Shoots and all the work of the Jane Goodall Institute. So please join me in a warm welcome for Maureen Smith.
Thank you all. I really want to thank you especially for coming out this morning so early when there was such a big event on television last night. I'm talking about the NFL draft, of course, which I know some of you were probably interested in, but there was also a little event that I thought, since you were so kind to come here early, and many of you may not have seen it, I'd show you some pictures from this morning so you could see what you had missed here. So it happened, it's over, and now we can focus. Oh, I didn't mean it's over. I meant the event's over. And let's hope they're very happy. And now let's focus on some additional things. So, thank you. The internet is a wonderful thing early in the morning. So the theme today for my presentation is maximizing impact by developing homegrown superheroes. And it may surprise you, but I actually have a long history with superheroes. I know quite a bit about superheroes, all kinds of them. In fact, they've been a big part of my career for the past 25 years. Prior to Animal Planet, I was the head of both the Fox Kids Network and the Fox Family Channel, and I was in charge of such superhero franchises as the Power Rangers, the X-Men, Avengers, Batman, Spider-Man Unlimited, and various movies also that dealt with superheroes. But, well, Power Rangers, I don't know, some of you may not be too thrilled with that one, but you know, those characters were heroes to some, but they were never my heroes. My heroes were real people. And let me tell you a little bit about me growing up. Growing up, I was a kid who loved animals of any kind. And so my first heroes, after my parents, were Jane Goodall and Jacques Cousteau. And watching those documentaries with my dad, I'll never forget sitting on his lap in a really ugly blue chair, and we would watch those together, and it really instilled a deep love of nature and the environment in my heart, and I carry that with me to today. But unfortunately, I was very asthmatic as a kid, and so I soon realized that going off and living in the jungle with Jane Goodall for months at a time, or scuba diving with the Cousteaus aboard Calypso, really would never happen. It would just have to remain dreams. Well, I chose to go into the television business then because I thought someday maybe I'll work my way into creating the kind of documentaries that inspired me so much as a kid, and I could then inspire others, and that would be my own unique way of helping. So that dream did come true, and then some. As you just heard earlier, in 2004, I was hired to come in and head up the Animal Planet Network, and that alone was a dream come true. But the icing on the cake for me when they offered me the job was that Jane Goodall had just signed an exclusive agreement with Animal Planet to be a part of it. So I thought, wow, I get to work with my childhood hero. But what turned out for me to be so amazing was we wound up making three documentaries together during my time at Animal Planet. And I had always thought of Jane Goodall in terms of my childhood and somewhat in black and white, if you can think of that. I was not aware at the time of the amazing work that the Jane Goodall Institute is doing every day on the ground, and very cutting-edge science, very forward-thinking in environmental issues, and those things really, to me, redefined what being heroic is all about. In fact, the third special that we did there, you'll see on the bottom, the logo for it, was actually called Jane Goodall's Heroes. And that was because she's a hero to so many people, and yet people will often come up to her and ask her, so who are your heroes? And this was a chance for her to highlight some people that she's come across in her travels and that she thinks are really wonderful and dedicated people. And the unique thing about them is they were all very different from one another, yet they all had a very common thread of being very unassuming, but very passionate and very determined to make a difference each and every day. So I was so inspired by the experience that in 2010, I left the profit-obsessed world of the media business and joined the very nonprofit world of the Jane Goodall Institute. And it's a decision that I've never regretted once, and I'm looking forward to continuing with. Now, Jane Goodall, who you see here in her youth, she currently has more awards than I can count, travels the world and will fill lecture halls with people of all ages. She is a Dame of the British Empire, which is the female equivalent of knighthood in the UK, and she's also a UN Ambassador of Peace. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how she came to be a superhero of that stature. So in her early years, she just turned 77 a few weeks ago, by the way, and she was born in London, England. And from a very early age, she, like me, was fascinated with animals of all kinds. You can see her with her very first stuffed animal, Jubilee there, a stuffed chimp that her dad gave her. Very foreshadowing of the future, I think. And she had this amazing passion and curiosity, and it was her mother, whose name was Van, who really encouraged this in her and ultimately became her greatest teacher of life lessons. And I have a couple stories that I'd like to tell you about Jane's childhood that I think will also tie in very nicely and let you see how the philosophy of how she grew up it plays each and every day within what we do at the Jane Goodall Institute